Hello, yo, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. How you doing, brother?
I am doing spectacular. All right, so this is part two of the first time champions. Real quick,
Sir.
just to give the audience a quick recap. Um, I the first episode, the first part of this episode is already out. So basically, what it is the best is what we feel are the best postseason runs. Um, in like for a franchise on their way to winning their first ever championship in the history of their franchise. So, without further ado, let's get it started. And I left off with the Nationals, so it's your turn. So, who do you have as number five?
Sir, my number five, the Boston Red Sox. You heard me, right?
Yeah, I heard you.
The Boston Red Sox in '03, 1903.
Mm.
People don't understand this, man. You don't understand the legacy on the Red Sox for those who aren't Red Sox fans out there. I don't expect you guys to understand this. But you know who we beat, sir?
Not sure. Who'd you guys beat?
We beat the Pittsburgh Pirates.
Oh,
Yes, sir. People don't understand. Does any player really want to go to Pittsburgh? Definitely not, because they suck. And I'm saying this live. Now, let me tell you a little bit about this, man. First of all, this was the first World Series win for my Boston Red Sox. They played against a tough team like the Pirates, man. And I know you're not a big baseball guy, man, but Cy Young, you know, also Jimmy Collins, Patsy, all those guys who are also still to this day legendary Red Sox players. You know, they were the reason why we secured that 5-3 series victory. Um, the legacy because of those guys till this day, they're remembered. Like anyone who's a Red Sox fan, they will know these players off by heart because that was the first time our teams ever won World Series, and it was going up against a well-rounded Pittsburgh Pirates team. Man, you know, uh, we had solid hitting that for that game. A lot of strategic plays. The pitching was extraordinary. Like records on records were made through that game from the guys that I named. They set the tone for the Red Sox legacy. Uh, After that one game, you know, it's still that 1903 game remains, a very pivotal moment in Red Sox journey, because like I said, man, we were going up against uh at this time, and it's the one time I'll say this, a pretty good Pittsburgh Pirates team, right? And no player from wants to be playing for Pittsburgh. Who really wants to be going to Pittsburgh? You know, even for those Steeler fans out there, I'll say this again: who really wants to be going to Pittsburgh? But this was a great game, great victory. Like I said, like if it wasn't for legendary players like Jimmy Collins, Cy Young, Patsy, all those guys who put in a bunch of contribution on the offensive end, right? Allowing those pitches to go blowouts, going for strikes, hits, all it was an all around thing for the team. But because of those three guys, it really paved the way for the legacy of the Boston Red Sox. So yes, sir. My number five is the Boston Red Sox, sir.
okay. All right, so my number five is the 1980 Phillies
Okay, okay, that's interesting.
because it took 97 years to win their first league championship, period. Pre-World Series era and World Series era. So a little background. So they were they started way back in 1883 in the old National League. They made their world, and then afterwards, they made their first World Series appearance in 1915, and then also in 1950, but will lose. But afterwards, they started to. Oh, and by the way, they lost to both the Yankees and the Boston Red Sox in each of those.
Thank you very much for putting that out there. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that one.
But afterwards, man, they were pretty mediocre. Um, it was a long journey for them, but like things started to change. Like 1976, it would be their first of their three. It would be their first of three divisional titles, and then in 1980, they made the leap. Finally made it to the World Series. Played in one of what many baseball fans believe is like one of the best series in the history of the MLB playoffs, which was against the Kansas City Royals. That went to 5 games because back then it was best out of 5, and and I think it's still that. But they beat them. They beat the Royals, and then they went on. No, they beat the Astros. Excuse me, they beat the Astros, and then afterwards they went on to face the Royals, and then they beat them in 6 games. And you had guys like Mike Schmidt, Tug McGraw, who's the dad of Tim McGraw, and then Bob Boone, Pete Rose, and yeah, like Mike Schmidt went on to win the World Series MVP, and it's the longest wait for a team as far as winning their first ever world championship. So they were the oldest team. They went longer than any other team as far as not winning their World Series or not winning a world championship. And it took them 77 years. It took them 77 to 97 years. So they were the Cubs before the Cubs, and that's my number 5. So what's your number 4?
Listen, sir. Now, I had to go a little old school with this one, and this is a little bit pre before the at the pre Super Bowl era, pre Super Bowl time, before Super Bowl ever existed, right? In the coming moments of how the NFL came about, man. This might shock you, sir. The Akron Pros,
What was it, 1920?
1920, yes, sir.
Yeah, they were the first ever NFL champions, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Now, like because me and you both can really talk about this, man. But like this is before, the NFL kind of figured out a system in determining a winner. Basically, at that time, winners were determined by their overall performance on the field, how like based off their stats, who did better than who, right? They didn't really have like a determined way or a proper system at that time where they had the playoffs, they had a Super Bowl type of thing, right? It was based off mostly just performance, right? But with this being like the first champions in the NFL, right? This was pretty unique because this is when like football first started and everything like that. And for those who don't know the Akron Pros, a little bit about the history, they were team based in Akron, Ohio. You know, they finished with an 803 record. Um, like I said, this was early NFL where they lacked a formal system for playoffs. The Akron Pros had a good performance. I'll give a small little shout out, sir. You know who this guy is? Fritz. Hello?
Fritz? Yeah, Fritz.
Yes. Fritz Pollard,
Fritz
one of
Fuller.
the first African Americans to play in the NFL.
Oh, represent.
Sir.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I just had to put a little history out there. But I thought that's me. That's my number. That's my number 4. I like it was the very first. It's a great start to a game that we all love. That's appreciated all around. So for them, like I said, this is how the kind of at the very beginning processes of starting the NFL and getting they didn't have a proper system and how they were going to deal with playoffs. So yeah, I definitely picked that team for my number 4. So yeah, man, what do you think about that?
No, pretty good, pretty unique, pretty impressive. Yeah, yeah, that was good. That was a good one. So number 4, I have the 2012 Los Angeles Kings because
Expect that. I should have expected that. Yes, sir.
that's
Tell
a
them about my boy Kopitar, man. Tell them
yeah,
about
I will. I
Kopitar, man.
will. Cause so they came in just like the St. Louis Blues. They were one of the expansion teams that came in 1967, along with, like I said, the Penguins, Blues, Flyers,
Mhm.
they're the Kings, and then there's one more. Oh, the Minnesota North Stars, and then afterwards the Cleveland Barons or the Gold Seals, but they're no longer in the NHL. But they came in, had some pretty. They had a great player in Marcel Dion. He was probably the first superstar that the Kings had in their history, right? And they had they were known for one of the more classic comebacks to happen in postseason history with the Miracle on Manchester. It was Game 3. It was against the Oilers with Gretzky, Grant Fuhrer, Mark Messier, Paul Coffey, those guys, right?
Yeah, man.
That was a high powered off. Like this is 82. This is the Edmonton Oilers, the great Gretzky, the great Mark Messier, the great Grant Fuhrer, all Hall of Fame players, right? High-powered offense. Gretzky was lighting the league on fire, right? And that was his record-setting season where he had 92 goals that year. But anyways, they came into the game, they were up 5-0. And then afterwards, they blew a 5-0 lead in the Forum, in the famous Forum, and the Kings came back to win the game, and then they came back to win the series, right? So that happened, and then ironically, Wayne Gretzky, 11 years later, once he joined the Los Angeles Kings after being traded from the Edmonton Oilers, he would lead the Kings to their first Stanley Cup final. They lost to the not the Los Angeles Kings. They lost to the Montreal Canadiens, which is the last time a Canadian team won a Stanley Cup. But nevertheless, pretty decent. But afterwards, from that time period to 2012, they only won one playoff series, and that was against the Red Wings, right? Then in 2012, they make the playoffs, but they're the 8th seed, so they're the lowest seed in the conference, right? So you don't expect anything from the Kings. You just expect them to have just another season, except you're just in the playoffs. It's just going to be another Los Angeles Kings season. But like you said, they had one of the best goaltenders, and he is probably going to go down as one of the better goaltenders in the history of the league. Jonathan Quick, he's American. They had Kopitar, and
Mhm.
yeah, like they ended up no, but what happened? What ended up happening was from then onwards, when the playoffs came, they dominated. Their first 3 series, I think they started off the series 3-0, right? And their playoff record as an 8th seed, by the way, so they're the lowest. They ended up being the most dominant playoff team ever because they ended up going 16-4, only losing 2 games going into the Stanley Cup final. They went up against the New Jersey Devil. New Jersey Devil, in their history, they have 3 Stanley Cups, um, played in 4 Stanley Cup, and they have their veteran goaltender, Martin Bourgeois, and that was one of his last games, I believe. And yeah, they got off to a quick start, 3-0, but then the Devils came back, won the next 2, and then they finished it off in Game 6 at the famous Staples Center, and that's what won them the series. That's what won them their first championship in their 45-year history. And goaltender Quick ended up getting the He ended up winning the Conn Smythe Trophy. So that's my number 4, the Los Angeles Kings 2012. Number 3 would be the Cleveland Cavaliers 2016. You understand? And the reason why I picked them is because, I mean, let's go through it. They came in 1970. They came in with the what's their names? The Buffalo Braves, who are now the Los Angeles Clippers. And so when they came in, they made it to the conference finals in 76, but and they made it in 92. But in the 80s, when they were at their best before the LeBron James era, they ran into one man, and he goes by the name of Michael Jordan, because Michael Jordan knocked the Cavs out the playoffs in 88, 89, 92, and 93. So that's 4 years. Okay. And so, and the most famous heartbreak that the Cavs fans had to refer to before LeBron, and it's probably their most heartbreaking loss till this day, is the shot where Michael Jordan, you know, comes, catches the ball, goes to the top of the key, hits a jumper, and the rest is history. You know the shot. And then afterwards, they made it in 98, and then like they made the playoffs in 98, and that would be the last time they would make it until to the playoffs until LeBron James came in, which was in 2003, coming straight from high school. Then afterwards in 06, he led them to their first playoff appearance. And then they beat the Wizards, and then afterwards won 7 games against the Pistons. And then in 07, that's when they made their first playoff appearance. And they at the time, they were the oldest team to make it to their first NBA finals. It took them longer than any other team to make it to their first NBA finals at that point, right? In 07, but they lost to the Spurs, and then afterwards made it to the conference finals once again, lost to the Magic, and then LeBron went off to the Heat. But in that time, after he left in 2010, they drafted Kyrie Irving, they drafted Tristan Thompson, Dion Waiters, they drafted some guys.
Okay, don't be rushing through that name. Like that name doesn't mean nothing.
What?
Tristan the Dumb Thompson. That's what you just rushing through that name going Kyrie Irving. But like you were naming some relevant people till you got to Tristan Thompson. But I'm sorry, we're running through that name like it means something.
Listen, we don't bring e-news, e-talk, whatever. We don't bring that celebrity gossip into hoops. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Just making us Canadians people look bad, man.
Honestly, bro. Yo, listen, the man went from being born and bred, dwelling in Brampton, to now he's with the A-listers up in Hollywood.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. Yeah, so please don't be bringing no Tristan Thompson bullshit on here. No bueno from the Dumb Thompson.
I'm dead. Anyway,
but again, rest in peace to his mama,
though. Yeah. Rest in peace. Yeah. Anyways, bro, he came in. So that name, you're right, and then Anderson Varejao. Well, he had been with the Cavs, right? Yes, but Kyrie he's making a name for himself as one of the best PGs in the league, as one of the best point guards in the league. Then LeBron comes to Cleveland. He comes back to Cleveland, right? They drafted Andrew Wiggins, but then Andrew Wiggins got traded for Kevin Love. And that would be the team that would be responsible for the Cavs' run in the Eastern Conference for the next couple of years, starting with 2015, where they make it back to the finals. And turning around their season, going from 33 wins to 53 wins, making it to the finals, losing to the Warriors in 6, but they didn't have Kyrie or Kevin Love in there. So LeBron, along with Matt Dellavedova, let's not forget about him, pushed the Cavs to 6 games. right? Boom. Then 2016 happens. Same deal. 50 plus games, best record in the East. Make it all the way to the finals. Go up against the Warriors again in the rematch. Now they're down 3-1 because this is the 73 win Warriors, the team that was supposed to go down as the greatest team ever, right? But
Yeah.
what was different between last year and this year is that they had Kevin Love and Kyrie Irving. So they had a healthy roster. Game 5 happens, and both LeBron and Kyrie have one of the greatest NBA finals performances in the history, where for the first time, two players scored 40 points. Two teammates scored 40 points in a game. And Kyrie had one of the greatest finals performances I've ever seen in game 5. And then in game 6, LeBron had another 40-point game to tie up the series 3-3 to send it back to the Oracle Arena for game 7. And in one of the greatest NBA games ever, right, in one of the all-time games, classics, LeBron has the chase down block. And then to seal the victory, to add insult to injury, Kyrie hit the shot that was heard all across the world, where he made a 3-pointer, a contested 3-pointer over the reigning MVP, 2-time reigning MVP Stephen Curry. And then afterwards, they won the game by 4 points after LeBron James hit another free throw. They won the game by 4 points, and then the Cleveland Cavaliers won their first ever NBA championship after 46 years, right? But it wasn't just after 46 years for the Cavs. That was the first time the city of Cleveland had a professional team from all 4 major sports win a world championship since 1964. So they had gone 52 years without either the Cavs, Browns, or the Indians winning a championship. It took them 52 years for fans to see that. So, and if you guys haven't already, if you guys have the ESPN app, or for Canadians, the TSN app, go watch the 30 for 30 for Believe Land. It talks about that entire thing. So go watch that, and it's an incredible document. It's an incredible episode. So go watch that. And yeah, that's my number 3. Is there anything I'm missing from that?
No, no, not at all, man. That was a good number 3. But because of technical issues, I didn't finish my number 3.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
yeah, so like I was talking about the Montreal Canadiens, like I said, not a huge, just getting kind of into the hockey scene a little bit, watched a few games here and there when I could, when I can. But the Canadiens, uh, you know, uh, being Canadian, some of the big teams, help me if I'm wrong, man. But like I know about the Maple Leafs, the Canadians. I believe the Oilers are the team. Does Winnipeg have a team?
Yeah,
Winnipeg,
Winnipeg
some
has a team. Winnipeg Jets.
Winnipeg Jets, right? So I think those are the Canadian, all of the actual Canada. Those are all the Canada teams, right?
Yeah.
Or Vancouver Canucks,
Yeah.
right? Vancouver Canucks. So the Canadians is probably now hockey fans don't be coming after me. Like I said, just getting into the game. That's why I said what I said. Um, the Canadians is like between the Maple Leafs and the Canadians, which team would you say has more prominence, has more
Has more
being
popularity.
successful over, like not
I,
popularity, but more of a successful career over the years? Like which one has
the
like the most
Canadians.
Canadians? So yeah, like I said, I'm new to the game. I'm trying to get into it, learn a little bit about the history, and so I believe, so basically around that time, so the team I'm about to talk about is more the 1923-24 season, which marked their first championship. The league at that time was the NHL at that time was in their sixth season in the NHL at that time, and the Canadians were under the guidance of Leo. I don't want to pronounce his name because I know how crazy you hockey fans are. and I ain't trying to like mess up the man's name, and then you guys try and hunt me
Elitist.
down. What?
Elitist. They get on you for any little thing. If you don't know what skates Ken Dryden
Yeah, literally, man. Like, I
wore
ain't trying to have a bunch of
in the fifth
hockey
game of a
fans
regular
coming at
season, they
my
get on
crib,
you.
you know. But anyways, the team, like the team overall had a from what based off of when I was researching and going more in depth about this one, they had a talented roster. They had Howie, Morenz, Earl, legendary goaltender George, Vezina, you know, and throughout the regular season, the Canadians demonstrated their skill and consistency, finishing second in the standing as they entered the playoffs. The excitement of the city of Montreal at that time, and of course, their path to get to the championships was quite challenging. They faced off against teams like the Ottawa Senators in a best of three series to determine the NHL champion. But the they fought hard and well for it, contested between two really great teams. Oh, that's another Canadian team we forgot to mention, the Ottawa Senators, man.
Mm.
Yeah, so many teams in hockey, and it's the one sport where Canada makes more of a presence out of the when you look at the major sports, right? Because when you look at the MLB, right, we got the Blue Jays. You look at the NBA, we have the Raptors. There's still no league in the NHL, but hockey is that dominant Canadian sport where they have not just one but several Canadian teams. So it's pretty unique. So but like at that time, man, like that was the Montreal Canadiens' first championship win. Um, like the rest is history for them. They're a legacy team. They're a team that shows up. They have a long line of history, which hopefully later on I'm gonna get to know. So I can come on here and really know more about the hockey, all hockey sort of information. Like I said, getting into the game. I know you as well, my friend, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
that's what makes it hard. Okay, listen,
yeah,
we're Canadian. Well, we're not Canadian borns, but we're Canadian citizens. We grew up here. So
100%.
the reason why we're over explaining this is because believe me, if you live in Canada, if like I said, if you don't know what the 12th string goalie, if you don't know his hockey pads, I'm telling you, they have like they look
Yeah,
down.
like
Not
Canadians
even
here, they breathe hockey. Like
yeah,
everything is hockey is down here, man. So you
yeah.
have to know it. Like, it took us both like a little bit longer to get into the hockey scene to understand the game. Like, don't I'm not saying it wasn't it's always been around us. Like guaranteed half of the people in your grade in your elementary to high school grade played hockey. So
Yeah, yeah.
so like unless you're living in like you know Scarborough and Saga where hockey may not be the biggest thing, but like or Brampton as well, but hockey's a big thing. And if you go northern or even more of the western side, hockey's a big thing. So yeah, man.
All right, bro. Okay, so I already did my number three. So my number two, I'm gonna go with the team that probably changed the game in the NFL. I'm gonna go with the 68 Jets. Okay. So you laughing again?
Oh, continue, man.
Nah, fam. How are you gonna laugh at that? All right, let
Yo,
me
continue, man.
okay. I'm
Continue
gonna
on
go with the
this.
68
Please
Jets,
continue
okay?
on this.
So the Jets have not won nor made it back to the Super Bowl since the 68, right? But here's the thing. They came in the AFL as the New York Titans. And then 4 years later in 64, they were the New York Jets. Just like the Blazers, who I had on my number 10, they never made it to the postseason. They never, and back then you had to win, you had to have the best record in your conference in order to make it to the championship game. Or if you had a tie, you just played a play in game, like a play-in game, right? But they never did that. They never had like they were never good enough. They had a couple winning records or winning seasons, but never did that. But then in 65, Joe Namath, who they draft from Alabama, comes in as their quarterback. And slowly but surely they start progressing as one of the best teams, right? And then in 67, he had a record-setting season where he was the first quarterback to ever throw for 4,000 yards in either in American football history, not the CFL, but in either the NFL or the AFL, right? Then in 68, um, he started off the season slow. He had in his first 5 games, he had 12 interceptions, right? But then for the rest of the year, he only threw 5 interceptions, right? Or 6 interceptions, right? 5 or 6 interceptions. Then they're 11-3. They end the season 11-3. And then they go up against the Oakland Raiders, who were the defending AFL champions. And so they played in Super Bowl II, right? They beat the Oakland Raiders to go to the Super Bowl. Now, this is why I have on my list. They go up against the Baltimore Colts in the NFL. Remember, the NFL and AFL were 2 separate leagues before the merger happened.
Mm-hmm.
The Colts were, I believe they were 13-1. They were gonna go down as the greatest team in the NFL. They were the most dominant. They smashed the Browns in the NFL championship game, who were the only team to beat them in the regular season. And they were 18-point favorites in the Super Bowl. That till this day, that number has not been surpassed. No team had been more heavily favored than the Baltimore Colts going into Super Bowl III. Okay. The Jets are in the AFL. That's looked at as the more inferior league. And then with that, they come in and they accomplish one of the greatest upsets in sports history and the greatest upset probably in NFL history when they beat the Colts to win Super Bowl III, to win the Jets their first Super Bowl. Okay. And till this day, it's the only AFC conference championship / AFL championship they've ever won. So they haven't been to a Super Bowl since, although they made it to AFC championships. It's the only championship win as far as the AFC championship goes, and it's the only Super Bowl win. So that's why I have it as my number 3, and it changed the game because without that, would the AFL and NFL merge as quickly as it did? I don't think it would, because the very next year the Chiefs won, who were also for the AFL. So that's what I'm saying. It literally changed the game. You can't talk about this game. You can't talk about the NFL without talking about this game. So
blasphemy.
That's why I have it as number 2.
Yeah, blasphemy, but it's okay.
Yeah, that's fine. Who's your number 2?
My number 2, man, and this doesn't bring me joy and talk about this team, but we have to bring it up, man. The New England Patriots.
01? Hello?
Yes, sir. We got to bring it up, man.
Yeah, that's your number 2?
That's my number 2, man.
How's that better than the Jets? I mean, I went through it, but
you know what? You had your spiel. I sat here, listened to you talking a bunch of blasphemy, but that's fine. It's my turn to shine now. All okay. Right. Let's break it down, man. Let me break it down if that's okay with you, man.
All right, go ahead.
So, for those who don't know the unique history of the New England Patriots, first of all, let's start back when they first started. The Patriots were established as Boston Patriots in 1959 as part of the American Football League. Now, sir, if I say anything unfactual or wrong, please correct me. Don't hesitate.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Okay, go ahead.
So they played their first season in 1960. The team struggled, and there's a bunch of changes in ownership, right? Now, in 1971, the Patriots moved to Foxborough, Massachusetts, and became the New England Patriots. The move to Foxborough marked the turning point for the franchise as it saw stability and a larger fan base. Now, now I know what people, I'm gonna break it down into different eras, right? So the Chuck's Fairbanks era, which is basically was like 1973, 1978. Am I right?
I think you are. Yeah.
So, you know, under the head coach Chuck, the Patriots experienced a period of relative success. In the 1970s, they made playoffs 3 times during that era, but a Super Bowl appearance remained non-standing. Now, the Raymond Berry and the 1985 Super Bowl run. Patriots enjoyed one of the most successful seasons in 1985, led by head coach Raymond Berry and driven by a dominant defense. The team reached the Super Bowl, but suffered a lopsided defeat against, you know who?
The 85 Bears.
Yes, sir, the Chicago Bears. Now, in 1988 to 1994, there were ownership changes. The team underwent several ownership changes during the late 1980s to early 1990s. In 1994, businessman Robert Kraft purchased the Patriots, bringing stability and a commitment to team success. And then the Bill Parcells era, which is basically 1993 to 1996, with head coach Bill Parcells, the Patriots experienced, they came back a little bit. They reached the Super Bowl in the 1996 season, but were defeated by the Green Bay Packers. Now we're getting kind of closer to the timeline where Petey Grell transitioned, departed after Parcells' departure. Our boy Petey came in, took over as head coach. The
Pete
team went,
Carroll?
yes, Petey. Let me call him Petey, sir.
Okay.
Okay, whose turn is it to talk right now? Petey. Okay, let me call him Petey. Okay, I'm not. You think I'm excited talking about the New England Patriots? Do you think I'm excited?
You said you weren't excited, B.
Okay, thank you, sir. He took over as head coach. The team went through a period of transition, but they struggled to find consistent success. Now in 2000, we're getting there. Robert Kraft, you know, made a decision to hire Bill Belichick as the head coach. You know, Bill Belichick, for everyone who knows, was the defensive coordinator for the New York Jets. Began, implementing his vision for the team. Now we're in 2001. So everything sounds factual, sir?
Yeah, yeah, you're doing well.
Okay, so the New England Patriots, first Super Bowl win for that year, and the dynasty has started. So for those who don't know, this was Tom Brady's second season playing for you know who. Yeah, 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 the Patriots. So for all you Brady fans, this is a one-time thing where I'll be hyping up your boy. Now, for those who don't know, was in his second season in the NFL, demonstrated, you know, what Brady does and what everyone's seen, great passer, team leader, has led his team to a bunch of Super Bowl wins. But, before this was the defining moment, showing the great success of, Bill Belichick as the head coach, Tom Brady as the quarterback, leading his team as as far as they did. But overall, the team itself had a great overall team. It came down, where you know in the final minutes where the score was tied 17-17. you know Brady, orchestrated a very great drive to set up a game-winning field goal attempt. You know, Adam, the Patriots' reliable kicker, successful converted a 48-yard field goal as time expired, securing a 20-17 victory for New England. You know, the win. This was really the start of what the Tom Brady, Bill Belichick Patriots era. This victory, solidified Belichick's reputation as, again, this is one time I'm saying this, as one of the greatest coaches in NFL history. You know, ability to craft a game plan that, really maximize their team strengths, you know, really set the bar for Brady's career and, arguably making him one of the greatest quarterbacks in the history of the NFL or players themselves. So, yep, I put the New England Patriots as number two.
Okay, okay. All right. So my number one, I mean, you're not gonna get about this. You're from the Bahamas. So I just gave you the hint there. I'm gonna go with
Don't
the
say it.
72 Dolphins. That's my number one. Is that your number one?
No, it isn't, sir.
Okay, okay. So that's my number one. And Dolphins were an expansion team in the AFL. So they came in 66, first year of the Super Bowl era, and they weren't good. They were probably the worst team in the AFL. I mean, they only won the 15 games a total in their first 4 seasons. And then 1970, Don Shula came from the Colts to the Dolphins and turned it around. So they went from 4 wins in 69 to 10 wins in 1970, or 3 wins actually. So already they're in the NFL's the first season. That's the AFL NFL merger, and already like they're the best team in their division and one of the best teams in the AFC conference and one of the best teams in the league, right? Then in 71, just like that, they make it to their first Super Bowl. They get washed. Unfortunately, it was also another team's first championship, which is our bitter rivals, the Dallas Cowboys. So the Dallas
Please don't
Cowboys
bring that up, please, sir.
beat the Dolphins in 71. Okay.
Yeah,
Now,
sadly.
then in 72, um, they they made history. They made history. A lot of people want to say that like they want to put asterisks on the Dolphins Super Bowl run because their schedule was easy. They didn't really play a lot of playoff contending teams or teams that ended up making it to the playoffs. But going undefeated is hard. Okay. So let's not act as if, it's still hard to do, right? So some of the players they had, Hall of Famers, future Hall of Famers, by the way. So let's start with the guard Larry Little, right? Center Jim Langer, then Bob Greasy, then running back Larry Zonka, then Paul wide receiver Paul Warfield. So all these guys are in the Hall of Fame. So and then you have Nick Bonacani, right? He's the linebacker. But then you also have guys like Mercury Morris and Jim Kick, who are spectacular running backs, right? They were Mercury Morris and Larry Zonka that season, I believe, were the first pair of running backs on the team to rush for 1,000 yards. So that's impressive, right? So they go into the playoffs. I don't remember who they beat in the divisional round. I think it was the Browns. I believe it was the Browns. Some fact check me on that. But to go to the Super Bowl, they faced the Pittsburgh Steelers, a team that I mentioned earlier on this list, right? And the Steelers came into that's another team that was improving after years of fertility, right? Came in, beat them, but they had to go to Pittsburgh. That's the thing. They went to Pittsburgh to face them. They had home field
Going to
advantage.
Pittsburgh.
Yeah, although they had the better record, they went to Pittsburgh because I think Pittsburgh won their division that year because that's what usually happens. If you win your division, you have home field advantage regardless of, who you face, right? That depends. Depends. Anyways, they do that and then they go and then they face the Redskins. Now, that's another one of our bitter rivals, the Washington Redskins, who are now the Commanders. They were favored against the Dolphins to win, although the Dolphins were undefeated. And then the Dolphins made history and ended up beating the Redskins, and then they ended up going 17-0. So no team has finished a season. No team has finished a season undefeated since the Dolphins, and prior to that, a team that finished undefeated were was in 1942, right? So that's my number one team. That's my number one team, the 72 Dolphins, and they set history. They had the greatest season ever in North American sports, going undefeated, and they went on to win a Super Bowl the very next year, and they haven't won since then. So that is my number one team, the 72 Dolphins. All right, so that's my number one. And what is your number one?
But I had to give it to the Celtics, guys. With legendary, may he rest in peace, Bill Russell. You know, uh, the remarkable record that team had and earning the top seed in the Eastern Division. They had teamwork, their defensive abilities, and their coach, legendary. But the Celtics faced off against the St. Louis Hawks in the NBA Finals. You know, it was a tough battle. Bill Russell was in his rookie season at that time, who he definitely played a pivotal role in the Celtics championship run, with the shot blocking, rebounding abilities, just building up the defensive string. Bob, the team's point guard, orchestrated, the offense with precision, with exceptional ball handling and everything like that. And let's break it down, man. Let's break it down. Game 7, man. You know where Game 7 took place? The Boston Gardens on April 13th, 1957. Home crowd, and the Celtics secured a convincing 125-123 victory over the Hawks in a double overtime. Bill Russell's impact on the game was immense, recording 19 points, 32 rebounds. Tommy, another key contributor, added 37 points. The victory, marked their first NBA championship, solidified their place in basketball history. You know, Red, known for his distinctive, I know you know this, sir, distinctive cigar smoking celebrations, began a tradition of excellence that would define the Celtics' legacy. The championship will win laid the foundation of the dynasty at that time, where they went on to win 11 championships in 13 seasons. So from 1957 to 1969, they didn't just secure a championship team, they secured a legacy, a winning culture that resonates within the franchise. Like you see it, man, with the Larry Birds of the world, man, the Garnett, the Rondos, all those guys, man. The Boston Celtics has, because of the status this team has brought them coming in, they've continued to create a legacy of championships, tied with the Lakers themselves. But yes, sir, this was the number one team, the 1956-1957 Boston Celtics championship team.
All right, man. So that is number one. And yes, that is it for today's episode. This is the first time we didn't have the same team as our number one. And but yeah, nevertheless, a unique topic, because like I said, I don't really hear anybody really talking about it, or touching on this. But yeah, man, that's it. And this is part 2. And like I said, bro, appreciate you for being on here. And
always, man, always.
Yeah, well, you guys will hear from us next time. All right, easy.
Easy.